I'm Mihajlo. I'm the commercial manager at Flow Ninja, and thank you all for being here. So for the next 20-ish minutes, we're going to talk about something that might be one of the most underused and underrated go-to-market moves in B2B, which is basically using microsites at scale to land enterprise accounts. So just a quick round of housekeeping for anyone who hasn't been dabbling in go-to-market for a long time. ABM, or account-based marketing, is essentially treating a single account as a marketer one, or in other words, without casting a wide net, you just create a very personalized experience, and that's the way you get new accounts. So Checkout has been doing this for about 3 years, I think, and Ruxi here, who's joining us today, has been spearheading this initiative for the last couple of months. So yeah, Ruxi, welcome and happy to have you here.
Hi guys, thank you very much for having me here. For background, for all of you who don't know Checkout, we are a payment service provider, and my role at Checkout is web operations, which means basically moving forward from end to end every web project that's coming in, and microsites is one of these projects.
Yeah, so I guess that logically we need to talk about the time where microsites didn't actually exist. So let's say that you guys get an RFP, or your commercial team has an idea for a customer that you want to pursue. So what was the process behind it, and how did it actually happen?
So the project was similar to what we have nowadays at bigger projects. Usually we have a briefing coming in, we have a design idea. This needs to be reviewed. We have had a lot of feedback rounds because it's not always the first design that comes out. And after this back and forth of the feedback, then usually this would go into development, comes back, of course, back and forth with the feedback. And when everything would be okay, this page would go live. And now you have to imagine this scenario would take up to the whole day, or the development would take 3 to 4 hours, but the whole process would be up to a day. And as you can imagine, these pages are quite important. They need to go out quickly. It's not something that the team can wait 2 or 3 days to ship. So it was mainly doing one per day, depending also on the time zone, because we are operating, we have teams in the whole world, we have offices all over the world. So imagine somebody coming in with a microsite request in Europe time zone, but also somebody coming in with a microsite request in the US time zone.
Thank you. So if you think about it, again, when we go back to that time, so is it safe to say that, let's say your commercial team had an idea of 5 or 10 microsites for the week, and did you actually pass on some of the RFPs because of the speed to market or any other reasons that happened at that time?
I guess here you cannot cancel or not just do the microsite. You have to pause your other projects. Like if we have let's say, a template we are building and microsites come in, we have to pause this project so that we can ship the microsites, of course, because this has priority above everything else, especially as these processes usually take weeks or even months, and microsites sometimes need to be adapted. So it was the highest priority, and everything else needed to be paused at that moment.
Okay, so this is not a classical Q&A, so we're just blabbering about, but let's be honest, there's a lot of quote-unquote easier ways to do an ABM campaign. So either sales decks or even sales portals or even custom landing pages on the website. But what did actually make microsites work for you guys?
Actually, there are a lot of reasons. The most important one, which I would mention, is the password protection. These pages are not visible for everybody. They're not in Google, so they come with a password. That means only the person who needs to open this page will be able to do it. And this password is always only shared with specific persons, with the team and for the prospects we want to target. Then another point, it's dynamic. So it's not static. It's not a deck you share once, and that's it. It's something you can replace. You can play around with the attachments, you can follow the process, and it's an ongoing process, because a microsite is not just doing it today and then shipping it tomorrow and that's it, there are different stakeholders, there are different processes, different ideas, different priorities. These pages need to be adapted, they need to be static. And it's also nice for the eyes, so it's not just a deck or a PDF or a document you share. It's personalizable, so it has colors or it has attachments that can be opened, it's dynamic, it's adaptable. You can, for example, put a link to a dashboard if you want to test it, or a link to a animation, or it's very flexible.
Yeah. So you mentioned obviously personalization. Do you have any specific examples that you've done so we're not going to be name dropping, but some of the examples that you've personally done or your team has done that are very kind of favorite for you?
I would say like one of the most important one is probably case studies. We have a lot of case studies on the page where we are speaking about experiences with clients, and if you target a prospect in a specific industry, then you probably would put a case study that refers to him. You would not put, let's say you target somebody in the music industry, you will not put a case study from sports. So that section, for example, or any event upcoming that might be relevant for that brand or for that team. And as mentioned, the attachment section, it's open for links, for PDFs, for a video. I remember we had even once a case where we did an RFP for an airline, and I remember that we put a small audio note which started like, hey, welcome to checkout, here is your partner, and so on and so on. So it was really nice, and that section allowed us to do it, or personalize it.
Okay, that's actually really cool. I know that you showed me a couple of examples, and it was like, I would buy from you, probably. But when you think about it, like, on the platform side, so what actually made Webflow being the choice that you made, regardless like of other platforms that you might have used?
So we did some years ago a migration from another CMS to Webflow because we had really big SEO problems with the URL structure, and it was very, very hard. So I would say that the microsite project that we built on Webflow was a nice add-on we explored. We came with the idea, and the Flow Ninja team helped us to create this project on Webflow. And nowadays, I don't know if all of you are familiar with the dashboard, but the microsite project is another project separate from the website itself. So we can do there everything else, and it doesn't impact the main website, which of course comes into with the URL structure or any other collection. And of course, as mentioned before, the password protection, which we have enabled there, which is very important. It's probably one of the most important aspects to consider.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so again, we're talking about something that's at this time very intuitive. I do remember a time where we were building everything from scratch, which was not as fun as it sounds, just because, like, let's say we do a microsite, it's ready to ship at 6 p.m. Then your US team comes in, and they have a round of feedback with 11 different things at like 10 p.m., so we had to work until midnight, and it was not stressful at all. But when it comes to the decision to stop actually doing this per project, what actually tipped the scale, and who pushed for that internally?
It was a mixture of more teams, especially regional marketing and of course the web team. You have to imagine it's always like the first contact point would be sales or commercial, then it will go to regional marketing, then it comes to the web team, and then it comes to you. So it was a mixture of they're trying to be more flexible, more autonomous, and not depend on us every time, but also on our end, on the web end, to be able to work on bigger projects. We have to imagine, like, if you have your developer working on, let's say, a new project, which requires a lot of attention, and then you have him interrupting every time, like, hey, we need this microsite, we need to adapt. Like, it was a mixture of more teams. On the one side, be autonomous, but also focus on bigger projects.
Yeah, and I know that when we were talking, you mentioned that you essentially created like a base kit for the components that you use for microsites. So I think you mentioned 9. So can you walk us through like which of the 9 that you used most?
So one of the components is basically 3 times or 4 times. It's a header component, which is, for example, you can use only an image, or you can put only a logo, or you can put our logo with the logo of the prospect you want to target. We have a case study section, as mentioned before, where we can attach a case study relevant to the prospect. We have an attachment section, as mentioned, with links to a dashboard as a demo, or any PDF, or anything that might be relevant. We have an upcoming events component, and then, of course, very important, a contact person component where we can add the person that the account manager or the commercial person that would be like your first contact in that case, with email, photo, and LinkedIn, and any other important information.
Yeah. I mean, it does sounds easy. It really does sound easy, but when we talk about it, it's one thing, but I know that you brought something that you want to show us, so yeah, we can cue the video now.
Amazing. I will stand up to show it from here because it's easier. So this is where I'm going actually through. We can play already. Yeah. These are the components that we created. You can see how I'm hovering over them. And this is just starting from scratch. For example, a navigation bar that we wanted to add. Here are different hero sections that I mentioned. So we can put either image and logo, or we can choose another one which might have the logo of the prospect, for example. The case study section, as mentioned. Attachments, which of course are by default empty. You would need to put the copy there. Event section, again, this is everything editable. It's not only one event that appears there. For example, here you can edit the title, the subtitle, the image. You can put the link that you want. You can see it on the right. Most of you probably are familiar with the CMS. The logo can be switched out. And I think that's the whole video. So basically, it's a drag and drop. As you saw, I created it from scratch. It was blank, but we can also take one other microsite, just duplicate it, and then switch out the images, and it would be less work still.
So, yeah, drag, drop, and ship. And yeah, it does sound easy, and I think I can do it.
You can do it.
Yeah,
it's very easy.
Yeah, I think I can, but I actually can. But let's say we came to a point where your team was actually able to spin these microsite up. So can you walk me through how that actually happened and what happened at that point?
Yeah, so basically they had this component, they had this drag and drop option. They would just log in and then start building their sites, as many as they want per day, not limited to one. Every person from every region could log in and work simultaneously on these pages. And on our end, for example, as mentioned, the example with the main project. So let's say our developer is working in the main project for whatever project. The team could work in the microsites project by themselves without any problem. So yeah, speed. I would say speed. It's basically the main point here.
Yeah, that is true. Again, I do remember the time when we started doing it with you guys, and then there was still a lot of questions. So what actually happened and later on that enabled you for your team to actually work autonomously without us?
That's a very long story. So basically, we shipped this project. We had some videos. We showed the team, and then you can imagine Slack popping up. Hey, this is not working. How can I do? How can I move? It was at the beginning very hard because people just they didn't understand how to work in the CMS. I mean, for most of us, we know how to work on the CMS. We know how it's working. Most of the people in that team's regional marketing team, they have never seen a CMS in the back end. And what for us might be very easy, for them it was very difficult. So a lot of questions came in. And then we finally did, because the regional marketing team requested it, a Q&A video where our developer went from scratch creating a microsite. So we could clarify all questions at that moment, and they had something to work with, apart from the videos for each component and the library we showed them. So then actually everything that's coming in since then is small, nothing that takes time to solve, mostly maybe a logo which is not big enough or something that requires a little bit of attention only.
You just painted a perfect picture. Dan, I love it. But it wasn't like we are talking about a perfect world, and we don't live in a perfect world. So it's always easy when you're shadowing someone or just looking at a tutorial and doing it. But what happened when someone broke it for the first time?
Yeah, that's another long story. So for background, for those who are not working day to day with components, so these components that we build, they are being used in all our microsites. And if you go into that component and edit, like for example, let's say the component, event component that you saw is blue, and then you go inside and you don't only change the text, but you change the color, and then you publish, it will be changed across all the microsites that we have. So that was the first problem. People, they didn't know how to work on it. Of course, they were not familiar. They was trying to do something, and they ended up editing the components themselves. So anyway, thanks God we have backups, and then we have always a developer who can fix it.
Yeah. And then roles and permissions.
These are my best friends. So the first instinct was, of course, okay, nobody's touching the publishing button anymore, so I limited everybody to publish these pages. What happens? As mentioned before, we have people all over the world. So if somebody in the US zone wants to publish a microsite at 10 p.m. Europe time, nobody will be able to review that site. So instead of having somebody going over the site every time before it goes to be published, we decided to enable the publishing for everybody. And with the same time, actually, I remember that I sat down with our developer and told him, like, hey, it cannot be either everything or nothing. So either publishing everything or not be able to edit anything. And we explore that basically every role in Webflow has permissions. And one of these permissions is manage components, modify variables, and manage, I think it's styles. So we basically just ticked off these preferences and build a role which is called limited designer can publish. That means that person can only drag and drop. They can edit what can be edited, but they cannot modify the components themselves. And they can still publish without breaking the system. And I think that was the game changer.
I still think you should have just written, like, do not touch each component. And
I cannot do that.
No?
No.
Okay. But I guess what actually happens there, because I don't think that people think about components actually as a tool. So it's like, yes, we have them, and yes, it makes our life easier. But I guess like what you're doing right now and explaining right now is that they're a tool. And in this case, so not only that you were able to be as autonomous from us, and we were able to focus on larger initiatives, but also your team wasn't dependent on you. So you can, sleep easily when like your US team publishes something at 2 a.m. But now that you're like 3 years in, can you walk me through the scale of what you've done and like how many microsites you shipped? Because I know it's like a large number, but can you just walk us through it?
I would say we ship more than 100. Like, you have to imagine these microsites are not being created every day. It's not that we are creating 5 per day and then you have to sum up and do math and then you have thousands. No, it's and here we count the most important ones. And yeah, we've seen really great engagement with these microsites. I mean, if you open our homepage, you can see all the brands we are working with, and yeah.
I mean, there's always that tough conversation every year, which is budgets. So, there is a huge meeting, and they're like, okay, we need to approve budgets. So when it comes to like continuing to, have this model of pushing for microsites, what actually makes the case when you get in a room with your CMOs and directors of web and and all the other C-level executives?
I guess like at that point, the good thing is that the team can now just like get in, they work on themselves, they build these microsites, they ship it, and if they have any questions, we jump in. But basically, they have improved the speed, autonomous, and of course, the conversion. So that's a big point.
Yeah, one could say it's converting very, like, at a high rate. But again, one of the things that we always talk about at this day and age is AI. So when it comes to like looking forward, what's the next chapter for Checkout, especially considering the whole AI movement?
So Checkout is an AI-focused company, like AI first. 97% of the organization is already using AI in some form, either automation of the workflow, coding, LLMs, everywhere actually what's possible. And it was natural for us to explore how AI could help us in the way we scale and build microsites. We are currently in an early stage of exploring a tool that's already showing great results, especially in the time of production and also in the quality of the content we are shipping. So yeah, I mean, nowadays, and considering that we aim to become the leading payment provider, it's important to explore how AI can help us to move faster, work efficiently, and maintain the quality at scale.
Well, that figures. And I think you're at what, like 97% AI run company?
Yeah, 97% of the organization, yeah.
Why not 100? That's coming, right? So I do have one last question before we wrap up. So again, kind of like 3-year period, what would you do differently than you've done in the beginning?
I think it's very important to put yourself in other people's shoes and not expect that what you are treating on with the whole day might be obvious for others. So I think we should have done this Q&A session like for the beginning and say like, hey guys, this is what we built for you. Let's go through a microsite build from scratch. We can show you how it works, and then here are the videos, here is the library, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I think it would have been a game changer because, yeah, you cannot give things for granted and expect that people work the same way as you do.
So essentially, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Correctly.
Yeah. Okay, so before I close, so obviously we were talking about like highly converting microsites for enterprises, right? So I think it's worth saying that this is a very scalable solution, so it can be scaled down. So regardless if you're a freelancer or you're an agency of 2 people, or you even want to send like a microsite happy birthday, something like that. So by the way, mine is at 8 months, so I'll be expecting something.
Mine is next month, so hurry up.
I'm gonna do a Q&A session in Flow Ninja, but I think that when all is summed up, there is a pattern, which is obviously you need to create a layer. So you do need to start as one-offs, right? And then you'll see what works and what is not working. And then after that, you can just build up layer after layer, right? And in the end, it's not what you can do in like day one. It's like what is going to happen year in and year out. So yeah, you've done a really good job. So thank you for being here, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.